Good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you, near and far, joining me from within the UK and from around the globe. It is my pleasure to welcome you all here today on the occasion of my book launch, and I'm so excited about it. Here it is, Elite Migrants, South Asian Doctors in the UK. This book is based on my research that I undertook for several years, and it is about the challenges of integration faced by South Asian doctors within the UK who migrated in the 1960s and 1970s, and also about the contribution that they have made to the British society. The completion of this book, of course, would not have been possible without the support of some key people. Some of you have remained so constant throughout the life of this project, and I feel humbled because you have enabled me to reach this milestone in my life. I'm very pleased to say that some of you have made it today to be with me celebrating the book launch. I would like to welcome my guest speakers who have given their precious time to be with me today. Each one of you has played a very crucial role in the putting together of this book. Professor Aneez, Esmail, and Professor Rob Ford. Both need no introduction because they are well known internationally for the work they do at the University of Manchester. They were both part of the team who oversaw my research project in its entire life. They provided me with the institutional support and a learning environment that I possibly could not have had elsewhere. Thank you so much for being there at every step and trusting me to undertake this project. I would like to welcome Professor Rajan Madhok. He has had many roles within the NHS and in the community, such as he has been a BAPIO chair. BAPIO is an organization for British Association of Physicians of Indian Origin. They were very helpful. In fact, they partly contributed to my research project. He has also been a director of public health in Manchester, and he's also a poet when he's not a doctor. I remember talking to him, in fact, it was a book launch gathering. I don't know if he has any recollection, but I certainly do. I was having a very passionate conversation with him about my early interviews with the doctors. He was listening very keenly, and before he left, he said, "But you must publish your work, Yasmin." This might have seemed a little thing, but it was a very reassuring and encouraging for me at the time. I think you had sown a seed, Rajan. So here we are, Rajan Madhok. I'm delighted to know that you are also present today to witness the launch. This book, of course, has been in the making for a while, I would say. I remember a similar conversation in 2018 with Professor Ibrahim Sarkeji this time, who is the Chief Publication Editor of Transnational Press, London. It was in Lisbon where I was presenting a paper in one of the migration conferences. He was very keen for me to publish my work with the Transnational Press, London, and finally we have the result here. I'm so grateful for him to turn this book around so quickly, even though it has been a very difficult year for all of us. Dr. Tariq Chauhan, a GP from Manchester who is well known in many circles, is also here with us. He was extremely helpful to facilitate access to my fieldwork. We also have a special bond. We come from the same city in Kashmir, which is Mirpur. And last but not least, Dr. Zara Farooq, a GP from Birmingham, who was my research assistant at the time and knows my interviews too well as she transcribed them. Many years later, she could still recite some of the poetic expressions that she picked up from my interviews. Apart from a very hard-working GP, she also happens to be my daughter. It is a real privilege to have you all here, and I honestly feel very honored by your presence. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for supporting me. I would like to acknowledge and thank the doctors who gave their precious time to tell their stories. My life has been really blessed with many other mentors who can't be individually named, and I'm so grateful for their role in the production of this book. I want to thank my family for being there throughout my journey. I'm going to give you a very compressed summary of the book. I am sure that my invited guests will tell you why this book is a must read for different types of readers. It has 6 chapters. In the introduction, I have talked about how this book came into being. I set out the scene, if you like, what was to be investigated and why. This book is primarily based on my PhD study, but also research that I undertook subsequently. I was given 2 main areas within which I had to develop my study further. They were community cohesion and overseas trained South Asian doctors. Now this group is often referred as international medical graduates. What that means is doctors who qualified outside the UK. The key concepts I explored were community cohesion, such as integration, migration of a highly skilled people and why they were such an important group to study. I discussed social capital in the form of bonding and bridging social capital, human capital. I wanted to explore what kind of social capital enabled these elite migrants to be successful, and since they were highly educated migrants, did their human capital facilitate their integration with the wider society? My key question was, do the lived experiences of highly skilled migrants, such as this group, differ from that of low-skilled or semi-skilled migrants? If so, in what ways? So in the first chapter, it is titled The Context of Migration. Before I looked at their experiences in the UK, I was interested in the context of their migration. So what were their migration stories? What were the driving forces behind their migration? Were they different, for example, from my father's generation, who was not classed as highly skilled migrant? Their stories were very fascinating. What I found here interesting was that the role of culture and religion has been understated in people's migration histories in the literature, how they influenced individuals, which I have documented in my book. Chapter 2 is titled Navigating the UK Medical System upon Arrival. In this chapter, I examine how the doctors negotiate entry into general practice as gradually their dreams of becoming specialists were fading away. Their stories reveal that as they navigated their way, that they were becoming entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is a new way of looking in the contribution of these highly skilled migrants, as traditionally this concept is preoccupied with low and semi-skilled migrants who cannot find jobs, and in order to circumvent blocked social mobility, they become self-employed. Here what we find is a similarity of experiences of medical migrants also becoming self-employed. Chapter 3 is titled Understanding Entrepreneurship within General Practice. Scholars argue that some immigrants are more successful than others. So in this chapter, I explore why this group of elites were so successful in becoming entrepreneurs. I examined their individual and group level characteristics. In doing this exploration, I discovered the role of social remittances that promoted entrepreneurship. Again, an area that is under-researched. Historically, remittances has been explored in the context of financial inflows, for example, economic remittances. What I found interesting was in my research study that there was in fact a two-way inflow, economic remittances as well as social remittances. By social remittances, I mean ideas, behaviors, identities, social capital related to democracy, health, and community organization that migrants bring with them from their home countries and often culturally diffuse within the new settings. It has been argued that the impact of remittances is heightened if the messenger is a high-status individual who is able to give something a new meaning, such that others occupying similar status positions readily adopt them, that is, following their peers. That was very much the case for this group of people. Chapter 4 is titled Integration and Sense of Belonging. In this chapter, I explore place-based identity and integration. So I took a look at the 3 case study areas: the differences in experiences and why that may be. I also discuss multiple identities that the doctors have. For example, they have professional diasporas, they have class identities, British identity, hybrid identity. Also, I examined doctor-patient interaction and how these identities are experienced. Some interesting facts were really revealed. For example, from the doctor's accounts, it became clear that not all white identities are privileged. Secondly, the doctors did not perceive white working class patients as coming from lower strata, but rather saw them as English first, which is an interesting topic. Chapter 5 is titled Experiences of Racism and Coping Strategies. I have dedicated a whole chapter on this. I was interested to know whether their class position mitigated the hostility that migrants generally face. And how do elite migrants, such as my group, how do they experience racism and what strategies do they employ? Do they differ from their counterparts? And finally, chapter 6 is titled Discussion and Conclusion. What insights do the lived experiences of highly skilled elite migrants, medical migrants, namely overseas trained South Asian doctors, add to our understanding of community cohesion? So I discuss how the doctors' experiences relate to concepts of social capital, such as bonding and bridging social capital. And finally, during the conclusion discussion together, I make policy recommendations. For example, greater recognition of doctors, identities are plural. South Asian languages also played a crucial role in bonding social capital. I would like to add that it was not just me being able to communicate in the community languages with the doctors, but the elites, these doctors, were also speaking in a very elite language. For example, often poetic terms. Had I not got that ability, I would not have been able to grasp some of the nuances. And I think it was, I very much hope that these are the kind of books that not only inspire me and my generation, but would also inspire the future generation. It's a great honor to have you as my guests today speaking about my book. Thank you. It is so lovely to see you all here today once again. Thank you all for supporting this event.